See you in a bit. And thank you all for sticking around for the late show. I appreciate it. So Rob Garmez, I head up the AI research team here at Infotech. We're a research and advisory company. We focus on the needs of CXOs and particularly CIOs and CTOs across the globe, mostly in English-speaking countries. So the US, Canada, of course, Australia, UK, including some emerging markets like India, and across all industries. So just a bit about Infotech. Areas of expertise, as you'd expect, across the technology domain. And really, we're seeing all of our clients almost simultaneously trying to put together their AI strategies. So everybody's trying to figure out what investments do they make, which processes do they want to improve, what capabilities do they need to build in order to take advantage of this new technology. So in response, we created a new stream of research, which I'm spearheading, called AI Marketplace. And it's all about how do we keep track of all the new categories and use cases and exciting vendors like Zuva across all domains. So as you can imagine, there's more than you can shake a stick at. And we're really in the process of connecting with both vendors as well as their leading adopter clients. So we hear it from both sides. We hear both what vendors have to say about the new capabilities, their tool sets, where they see AI adding the most value, as well as from the client side, what's working, what's maybe not working quite so well, or maybe not quite ready for prime time. Where's the business case? What's the experience been like? And so it's really the fruit of this sort of research that I wanted to share with you tonight. And I'll start with what I call our periodic table of AI categories. And what we're finding is, surprise, surprise, there are well-developed, ready to implement packaged AI solutions for virtually every role and function in the enterprise. And we start, as we are a technology research and advisory company, we start from the IT side of the fence. So if you look at project and portfolio management within IT, there's great solutions. Applications, not just applications with now AI flavors, but also how do you build the new applications like code generation, code completion, app testing, all sorts of applications and AI use cases for security, where AI is being used to identify threats and be more proactive about incident detection and response. Data analytics, as you'd imagine. I mean, AI is data analytics. So we're seeing some really cool tools that allow you to interact with your data in more of a natural language interface. So you don't no longer necessarily have to be an advanced BA or an advanced data analyst in order to really extract value from your data. And then for me, even the more exciting areas get into kind of what I think of as sort of more central within the enterprise. So sales, marketing, customer experience, everything from sales enablement and automation, tools that allow you to generate leads, produce content for your websites, for your social media, et cetera, personalized content. There's a really neat confluence here of conversational AI, chatbots, and customer support, where clients, particularly mid-sized to large clients, are starting to use the technology to deflect calls coming into the call center. So for some clients, is upward as high as 50% of the calls coming into a call center can now be handled by a bot. And that really opens up some exciting opportunities for these clients because they can choose to pocket the savings, which some of them do, but more often they're repurposing the rest of their call center on those higher value add requests. So clients get even better service. You no longer need to hear that you're calling it a particularly high volume period. AI is going to help you with the high volume stuff, and then humans are there to help you with the rest. This goes into HR, and we have a subsidiary within Infotech which focuses on HR research called McLean & Company, and we cover things like talent acquisition, employee experience. That bleeds into knowledge management. How do you access knowledge from the firm? How do you search for content across the firm? Into finance and accounting, and there's all sorts of apps for that, as well as admin, or what we call on the page personal productivity. And this is not only to help the admin team, but really it's to help each of us as business leaders, as employees of these organizations. How do we start to automate and take some of the drudgery out of tasks like note-taking, writing, creating presentations such as these, managing our time, managing our tasks. So, I mean, the short story here is a ton of fantastic solutions. And really, I think the challenge for any of us now as organizations is how do we pick the areas that matter most to us? Can't do them all at the same time. You got really good solutions behind many of these boxes. How do you pick the ones that are right for you? And that's part of what we help our clients with. I'll flip to the next page, which is sort of a corollary of the previous, but this is one of the most important insights, I think, coming out of our research so far, which is often when we talk about AI, we talk about LLMs and having to better govern our data, how are we going to fine tune, how are we going to train, things of that nature. But when we talk about these packaged AI solutions, really they're cheap and cheerful, they're quick to install, and it's a much rosier picture, much less heavy lifting. And we feel strongly based on our research that most of the time, say 70% of the time, clients can live a perfectly happy life up here in the packaged AI solution section of what I think of as our AI pyramid. So this is where you're going with a packaged app, you're not training your data. At most, you're pointing the AI app to your data because it needs to maybe read your contract in the case of Zuva, but you're not retraining the model. It's generally a pretty easy install to get some of these solutions going. Now, that's not to say that works 100% of the time. Some organizations are so large, so bespoke, or are in industries where maybe they're not as well covered with line of business solutions, and sometimes you do need to pick your spots. But our advice here is really be judicious. Try to go with what's off the shelf first, see how far it takes you, and then you'll be much better educated when it comes time to building what you need custom. We really think this should be the minority of your effort, and this should be most of at least the early bets that you make as an organization. One other great aspect of these solutions is the returns. And again, what we're finding early days, but seems to be more often than not the case, that the ROI and the payback truly exponential in nature. And what I mean by that is, we've for years been asking clients to help us assess their ROI for investments they make in technology. And generally what you get is more of a linear story where it's kind of a 3-year payback, something like a 20 or 25% ROI. The solution will eventually pay itself back, but you got to wait a while. And with these solutions, it's practically instantaneous. Often it's within the year. Sometimes it's within the first month, even the first week, that clients are saying, they're already getting net incremental value. And that's super quick for any technology solution. So really a different nature altogether for these AI solutions. And part and parcel of that, one of the quantitative questions we like to ask clients is what their net promoter score is. So for a given vendor, for a given use case, how likely would they be to recommend that vendor and use case to a colleague? And we're finding scores regularly at 10 out of 10, sometimes 100 out of 10. We had one client tell us it's a 40,000 on a 10-point scale. So really a lot of excitement for what clients are seeing. And what's driving that excitement? I think it's a few-fold. One is the operational efficiency of just getting these solutions in place. This notion that you get to value within the first month or within the first week, that's really attractive. That's very different to previous technologies. It's the growth, the ability to now take resources and strike out in new areas. You scale the organization. We're at a time where it's kind of weird economically. Companies are trying to grow. The labor markets are tight, but the macroeconomic environment is a little bit uncertain. And these solutions really help you scale rapidly, if only by freeing up resource, which you can repurpose, as in the case of call centers. So we really see them supporting business growth. We also really see them supporting the experience, both the customer journey as well as the employee experience. Regularly for any of these categories we investigate, it could be within HR, it could be for business analysts, it could be in legal for that matter with lawyers. We always get the feedback that, folks were initially a little suspicious. They thought they were trying to replace our jobs. Once they realized that that wasn't the case, off we went with adoption, and the experience is that much better. Employees, lawyers, analysts, HR people are realizing they can do way more now with less. They can scale their organizations. Often they were in groups that were resource constrained, so it allows them to be more strategic and do more of what they originally intended to do, rather than try to keep up with sort of transactional and more mundane tasks. So really a lot of positive feedback across the board for this whole set of solutions. I probably said these points, but just to kind of hammer them home, in the case of these packaged apps, it's not what you read. So what you read out there about AI is all sorts of governance steps. You need to be a data guru. You might need to hire a consultant, deploy a large language model, get new servers. None of that's the case when it comes to these packaged solutions. They're really cheap and cheerful, quick to install, and in general, a relatively plug and play experience, which means, as I said, you can get value from these virtually immediately. So again, extremely attractive for that very reason. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't still kick the tires on these, and you can use firms like us to do that for you. But you still want to make sure that whichever vendors you're going with, practice what we call responsible AI, have processes in place to protect your data, processes in place to manage accuracy and manage other risks emanating from AI. But we find as we speak to vendors, as we speak to their clients, it's generally the case that these vendors are well aware of that. They do have those processes in place, and you just need to make sure that you're comfortable enough that you can get started with any one of these. Another happy part of this story is what it means in terms of, are we replacing labor with machines? Are we working together with the machine, or what's going on exactly? And the way we kind of think of it is in terms of the task that's involved. And we look at the frequency of the activity, so how high the frequency or how low the frequency, as well as the risk inherent in that activity. Is it a high risk task or a relatively low risk task? And what we find generally, the sweet spot for these solutions are high risk, high frequency tasks that they're helping with. And that means that they're not automating per se, they're really accelerating. So it's human plus machine rather than machine instead of human. And the idea here is that together, human plus machine, you get an accelerated result, you get a lower risk result, which is a little counterintuitive. A lot of us feel, or a lot of what you read in the press is around how AI may add risk to the enterprise. We see it the reverse. When you deploy these correctly, when you pick the right solution in the right use case, AI is helping remove the risk because humans alone weren't perfect either. So whether you're talking about lawyers, doctors, whatever function, whatever role, there's manual error, there's fatigue, there's areas where maybe we could use a better data set. And that's what the machines bring. That's what these AI apps bring. So the sweet spot is really AI plus incumbent working together to deliver an even better result, quicker, faster, cheaper. One other neat thing we're finding from our research is an emerging business model. And it's really, I would say, still the case that most of the time when you look at these package vendors, they price their wares in terms of a certain dollar amount per user per year. And they're generally not super expensive. I'd say for smaller enterprise, generally we're talking about 10 or 15K. Mid-sized to large, maybe 15 to 25K, and then upwards of there from there for the enterprise. But that's what I'll call a more traditional pricing model, where you're paying per user, and then you try to kind of figure out, well, do I need all these users? And if I'm going with Copilot, they're requiring me to license the whole organization. Is it really worth it? And you have all these sorts of little mini crises of conscience, like, am I purchasing something that's going to pay back for all these users? And what we're finding increasingly the case is this new business model, which is pay per transaction, and in fact, pay per successful interaction. So take, for example, a legal memo. There's a vendor out there called Alexi. They offer legal memos. It's relatively cost-free to law firms and to corporates to run through Alexi. In the case of law firms, they'll often charge us as a disbursement to their clients. So literally, the law firm is paying net zero. And they get a perfectly comprehensive legal memo, kind of an 8 to 10 page document summarizing the law in some new area or summarizing recent case activity, precedent activity in some important area of the law in a day or two, with virtually no manual effort. It takes out roughly 90% of the manual effort. And what's particularly neat about the model is you pay per memo. So you pay Alexi somewhere on the order of 100 or 200 bucks a memo, and they crank these out as many as you'd like. So your proof of concept, if you like, costs you 100 bucks. So it's a no-brainer to start with some of these, see how well you like them, see who in the enterprise can take advantage of them, and start sharing them more broadly. Another scenario that I really like is in the call center. So a company called Ada.cx, I think another Canadian success story. They charge $4 per successfully completed transaction if by email, and $8 if completed via the phone. And these are, of course, AI, conversational AI, chatbot-driven transactions. And that way, you can, try the first few, try the first 100, try the first 1,000, and scale up or down as you need to. So a relatively risk-free way from a pricing point of view of getting involved in some of these solutions as well. Now, one important note here is it makes it harder to budget. The old way, we knew exactly how many users we were licensing. We know how many months there are in the year. We could do the math to figure out our budget. Here, you kind of pay as you go. So you have to be a little judicious. Is there the case? Are you happy if instead of 1,000 transactions in a year, you go with 10,000? You need to make sure that you have that scalability and that the more you buy, the more you get. The payback really is real. But as long as that's the case, we feel these are a much better way of aligning the vendor incentives with client incentives. One more point I'll make about these solutions is the ease of doing a proof of concept, or what we call a proof of value. So because they're so quick to install, because they are pretty straightforward in terms of training your staff, you don't need to take extensive data steps. You can start to get some of these in place really quickly and see if they're performing the way you'd expect. So what do we generally recommend folks look for? Well, generally, we recommend looking at the response time. Are you getting the response that you expect? Is the solution comprehensive? Are the accuracy rates where you think they ought to be? Noting that none of these are working at 1,000% anytime soon. I think the general consensus is somewhere around 90 to 95%, particularly for solutions that involve generative AI. So it's often the case that there's a human in the loop. So in the case of Alexi, if you're wondering why it takes them a day or two to return a memo and not 10 seconds, it's because they're running it through their own research lawyers internally to make sure it's copacetic before sharing it back with you. But generally, relatively instantaneous results, very high accuracy rates, and production quality that's ready to share with clients. In fact, in the case of customer experience and conversational AI, it's the client on the other side of the line. So literally, the client is part and parcel of the experience. In terms of the selection process, just know that there are more of these vendors than you realize. So no matter what use case you're looking at, you're going to have a fair size group to select from. You can leverage the research that's out there, either from firms like Infotech or from public sources. You can review the landscape, review not just the category you're looking at, but I also recommend reviewing adjacent categories, because some of these will merge and mix and match over time. What's a self-standing category today might be part of a larger category or a feature within Copilot down the road. So you want to give some thought just to how these may morph over time. But again, pretty easy to set up a proof of concept. So just confirm your key features and off you go. And that's really the gist of what we're finding. So I'll throw it open for questions in a sec, but I guess in summary, I would just say the lesson of this story is buy before you build. So buying in this case isn't tremendously expensive, is less risky than building, and you can really educate yourself, create a lot of value for your firm, and learn a lot more about the AI space before going into a deeper, darker build process, which you may need to down the road, but better to get there when you've got a few of these AI solutions under your belt and you really understand what your organization needs on top of those.